Okay, this is going to finish up chapter 14, Acts, and I want to share my screen here. Okay, one of the things that came to me about the day of Pentecost was it was when Moses left with the children of Israel, the Israelites. The law was given to Moses 49 days after they left. Okay, so, well, how do we get 50 if it's 49? Remember, it said to celebrate it 7 weeks after Passover. Okay, so if Passover is on this day, then you start the next day as 1, 2, 3, and you go on and you get to the 50 days after Passover, you see, because you got to start the next day, because you don't count the day of Passover, but you count the next day as the 7 weeks after that. Okay. Let's see where we are here. Okay, we got here, so now we're here. So go ahead and write this down. Okay, so what were the results, okay, of these chapters? Well, we read that the apostles' teaching is now premier. Well, it doesn't mean that, the teachings of Jesus is negated, but if you look at Matthew, let's see, well, you could go to Matthew 16:19, where we talked about this earlier. Jesus said, and I will give you, talking to Peter, the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. He also said this in 18:18. Look at Matthew 18:18. Jesus said, assuredly I say to you. Now, who is Jesus talking to? Well, he's not talking to us. He's not talking to me or you or any other fancy evangelist on TV or the Pope. He's talking to those men who would become the apostles. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. So he's telling them, whatever you do on earth will also happen in heaven. Okay, you say we need to take the Lord's Supper every Sunday. Okay, then we'll do that every first day of the week. Then that's bound in heaven. Okay, the apostles, whatever doctrine that they come up with will be bound in heaven. All right, whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Okay, what does that mean? Well, you say that we don't have to be circumcised to be Christians. Okay, then you can release that from the law. Okay, so the apostles went out, and see, a lot of people will say, well, Jesus never talked about homosexuality. Well, the apostle Paul did, and he's going with the authority of Jesus, you see. All right, enough about that. So now one thing I wanted to bring up, of course, Acts chapter 2, verse 42. Acts 2:42, and they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine. The apostles' doctrine. Okay, it's not different from Jesus's doctrine. It just adds to what Jesus had already built. Jesus built the church, died on the cross, was resurrected, sent out his apostles. Now it's your job to go out and do the easy work. Okay, Jesus did the hard work. He sacrificed himself. Now the easy work is for us to build the church. Okay, we read in here about fellowship. As I said, the fellowship in the breaking of bread and in prayers. Of course, miracles. In the Greek, this word is charisma, which can also be translated as gift, and it's where we get the English word charisma. If somebody has a lot of charisma, it means they have a lot of energy, a lot of interesting things about them. They glow, and they have a nice personality. Well, we get that word from this Greek word for miracles. And we went over those. We talked about the apostles speaking in an unlearned language. They were speaking in these real languages, nothing like okay, none of that. They were speaking in languages that everyone could understand if you knew that language. Okay. Number 4, sharing of material goods. They talk about this here, and look at verse 45 of chapter 2. And they sold their possessions and goods, divided them up all as anyone who had need. Okay, Christianity is going to be different from Judaism. Okay, you see that right off the bat. Christians wanting to help each other. All right, from the temple to Christians. Okay, what do we mean? Well, they're in Jerusalem. They're right there, right in front of the temple. And now everything's changed. Okay, nothing like this has ever happened. No prophet of the Old Testament, excuse me, ever did anything like this. Ushered in a new way, the way of Jesus Christ to get into heaven. Okay, 6 and 7, a new heartfelt way to worship God. All right, and tremendous growth. Okay, 3,000 souls were added, and they were added to the church. Who? Everyone? No, those who were being saved. Okay, those are the results there. All right, so we move to Acts. You see here Acts 3:1 through 7:60, miracles and message. So I thought this would be kind of interesting, and what I want you to do, this is test material. So Acts 3:8. So you'll look at that verse. Walking with, okay, good. Now what's the message? Now, not just 3:8, but the whole miracle. Okay, you may have to back up and read more there. But get a message out of there. Acts 4:16, what was the results? And by the way, we'll go over these answers at our next period, next Tuesday morning. Okay, what was the result of Acts 4:16? Okay, interesting. What were the results of the miracles? In other words, let me say number 1, 3:8, what is the message? Okay, there was a miracle, but what's the message? Okay, don't miss the point. All these miracles were done for a purpose. These miracles had a result. Okay, and what was the result in Acts 4:16? Acts 5:1 through 11. What's the lesson? Okay, well that one's an easy one. Acts 5:12 and 16. Okay, what was the result of these miracles that they were doing? Okay, all right, pause. Okay, that's right, we're back. I said it, yeah. Okay, so that was number 1. This is 2 and 3. Rejection by Jewish leaders. As I mentioned, there's no systematic persecution by the Roman Empire right here. Okay, this is by Jewish leaders for the most part. So there was a rejection here. Acts chapter 4, read about Peter and Paul getting arrested. Okay, but look at the response. Okay, did they stop? Did they hesitate? 4:12. It's where it mentions that there's no There's salvation in there's no nor is there salvation in any other, for there's no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. Okay, now I put this in here, number 3, reaction by the Jewish leaders, right after 4:12. Okay, they heard this, and what was their reaction? They saw the boldness in Peter and John. Okay, they just got arrested, and they go out and they say this, and they perceived they were bold, knowing that they were uneducated and untrained, and they marveled. And you wonder, did it just occur to them, oh, these were the people with Jesus? We see the problem now, right? Okay, write this down. Okay, the early church action. Okay, we see a problem early in Acts chapter 6 where the Hellenist widows were not being taken care of. Hellenist, of course, we mean the Greek, some Greek widows. Now, when you read this, you got to understand a couple of things. This is a long time period. We don't know how long. But obviously, this is not like a week later from the day of Pentecost, right? This is months, maybe a year away. I mean, this is a long time, years maybe, between these actions. And the book of Acts, it has a long gaps between there. The book of Acts covers a long period. Maybe that's one thing I should have put in here, is the idea of what time periods does it cover. It covers a very long time period. Okay, so the Hellenist widows were not being taken care of. Church takes action. Okay, they form a type of ministry, and they choose a few men, and they get the job done. Okay, number 5, we mentioned this already, is the sermon by Stephen. And it's an interesting sermon. I tell people, you want a good history of the Old Testament? Read Stephen's sermon. A very condensed history of the Old Testament. It's really, really good. All right, so Acts 6, 8, and 7 through there. And I put these 2 verses on here to compare. Okay, 7:54. Let's see, what does that say? Okay, 7:54. Okay, look that verse up. When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed at him with their teeth. All right, now how is that different from 2:38, 2:37? Now when they heard this, they were cut to the heart, and they said, men and brethren, what shall we do? Do you see the comparison there? This tells you the type of heart, maybe a good lesson on the types of soil. Okay, in Acts 7:54, they killed Stephen. They were cut to the heart to kill him. Okay, they were cut to the heart to do evil. But in Acts 2:37, they were cut to the heart to do what's right. Okay, good. I need to move on. So again, Stephen's sermon is a good history of the Jews. And let's see. Okay, am I finished there? Okay, good. All right, that's it. Okay, it's a very short one. So so what we'll do next time we're together, we'll go over these questions. But you guys remind me, okay? Because we want to make sure we get the right answer. There really probably won't be a wrong answer, but we want to go over these the next time we meet. I want you guys to look over these 4 things and tell me what the message is, the result, lesson, and result from these verses. Okay, this is Jeremy signing off.